This is Diego Accord here, Ramblings of a Board Guy, and today I'm going to be talking about Japan 2023 vacation. So, it is January, so that has come and gone, and there are some videos of, various things, mainly all the car stuff, videos of that up on the channel. And, it took me a while to get everything from the phone to the PC. Now, those videos, those car videos that I uploaded, I did those directly from the phone at the time. But generally, I don't like doing all this stuff on the phone. Like going through photos and doing all that stuff. I want a Windows environment and not a phone environment to do that stuff. So I was finally able to get my stuff over to the PC. And when you're going from iPhone to PC, it is a pain in the ass. Like, it's probably by design of Apple. Pain in the ass to get that stuff transferred over, because you hook your phone up and it seems like drag and drop will work, but it definitely does not work for bulk. And here's the thing: when you try to do it, and you come across all these errors, you'll Google, and once you Google, you'll find out that it just does not work for anybody. So it's probably the design, it's probably Apple by design. But unfortunately, the way to fix that would probably be to have a Mac, and I'm not interested in owning any Apple products aside from the phone, because actual computers, they just seem like a ripoff. I got a laptop that was, it was on sale, but a brand new laptop with a 4060 for, was it 800 or 900? Lenovo Legion. I don't think you can even buy a beginner Mac notebook for anywhere near that money, and it's not going to play games. It's not going to play games. I mean, like, fuck, what are you going to play? Like, what, they're trying to put Resident Evil, the latest Resident Evils on Mac? Like, so I'm going to pay at least another, I don't know, maybe twice as much, bare minimum. I don't know. I just know it's overpriced and it doesn't play fucking games. And to me, the thing is, if a computer can't play games, then it needs to just be basic. Like, give me some shit with 4 cores. Give me like a Ryzen 3 or i3 or even a fucking Celeron or something. It can just open websites and videos, probably barely, but it'll do those things. That's all it needs to do if it can't play games, and it shouldn't cost any more than fucking $150. But yeah, if I'm paying like actual money for a laptop or a computer, it has to be able to play fucking games. And my laptop has a 4060 and my desktop has a 4090, and of course I'm not able to play anything on any Mac whatsoever that's gonna match a 4090. So yeah. But anyway, long story short, Mac's not for me. So anyway, this trip, I think I did some videos where I was talking about things as I was there. So, I'm gonna post those up. There might be some different things. And as well, see, when I'm there, actually show, I think, I've got some videos where I do not show where I'm driving because I had nowhere to put the phone that could show. But I definitely had some videos where I was able to show my surroundings while I was driving. But I gotta go through that stuff. That's the thing. I gotta go through it to make sure that it's that the video is worth posting. So anyway, I'll figure that out. Now, to go over some things, because I did the, I did a similar video, or I did similar videos. It ended up being like 4 different videos for the 2019 trip. Those are not posted anymore. I was going to redo them. Try to condense them down. But, so I'll do it for this one. And, in that series, the first video was talking about the history, like how I got into Japan and all this other stuff. And then the history of me, wanting to go and how life ended up turning out, and then I'm able to go, and so on and so forth, right? That's how that was. And then obviously the actual trip, and then takeaways. So that's what I'm going to do here. I don't know how many parts it's going to be, but I'll get into the history. I am going to make that much more quick than I did in the first time around, which was part of the reason that I was going to redo it. So, let's see, I'm trying to, I wonder, does this car, I've had this car for over a year now, and I don't know if I have, I got the symbols that look like they're for heated mirrors, but I don't know if I do. I don't know if I have heated mirrors, man. Don't know. I guess it'll just have to remain a mystery. But anyway, alright, so the history of me getting to Japan. So I got into Japan because in the 2nd grade we had Japanese come to our school for some reason. I don't know what it was for, but we had Japanese visit our school. That was very interesting. We also did pen pals with Japanese that same year, and then there was, like, within social studies, there was a lot of content about Japan in social studies that year. But I don't think it was like the real thing, where they're talking about like World War II and like all the real stuff, which would not come for a couple of years later. So Japan, it's always, even when you learn about that stuff, it seems like Japan's role is kind of always downplayed, and anything that they did is downplayed, like all the Korean stuff and so on and so forth. Like, I didn't even learn about that in school, as a matter of fact. But the world is Japan's PR people. The whole rest of the world is. And this is something that you'll learn, like, even if somebody makes a joke. Now, I don't make a joke. I don't make the joke, but I see all the time, because Fallout's one of my favorite games, and I'm in like Fallout groups and subs or whatever, and in the game, it's China and the US, and and whatever alternate reality, and it goes sideways and everything's just fucking done, right? But of course we know, in real life, the US dropped those bombs on Japan. And, somebody might make a meme about Japan and getting the bombs dropped on them, like in a Fallout group, and then everybody will jump on that person. Too soon, man. Oh my God, how could you? And, it's like, bro, do you know how evil these people were? Like, if they would have occupied wherever you're at, like, you would probably be dead. And like, those soldiers, with what they did, with what they were okay with doing, they would not hesitate. They would not have hesitated to do you the same way. And if they had won, See, here's the thing. The U.S. has a, it's bullshit, but it definitely has, this thou art holier, and, kind of fucking fake altruism. Whereas, pretty much any other place, any other country they're not even gonna play that game. Like, they're not even gonna fucking play that shit. Like, you would be, and you could look at it like this. What they were doing to people. You could look at it like this. If you were lucky, you'd be part Japanese. And the thing is, that part Japanese would be forced upon you. And that's if you were lucky. If you're not, then, having ancestral brutality causing you to be part Japanese probably be the least of your concerns if you were not lucky enough to have that happen to you. And that's how it would have been. But see, here's the thing. Like, there's people that probably would look at that situation like, oh, that'd be great. I'd be part Japanese, man. That'd be awesome. But no, it wouldn't. Not for that reason. So anyway, that's going into a different direction. So we'll get back on, because here's the thing though. Even though you like Japan or whatever, like you still got to be aware. Like, you have to be aware of everything. You can't just you just got to be aware. That's all I'm saying there. So anyway, Japan was made to seem like this amazing thing, which it is. Maybe that's my bias from learning about it at such a young age in such a positive fashion. It's shown only in a positive light. But it is interesting, a lot more interesting, and it, just like most countries, it has a much longer history than the U.S. And within that history, you had the stuff that I was just talking about, which is not great, and it wasn't really that long ago. But you also have a much longer history spanning thousands of years, which you can see more than just remnants of that stuff today when you go to Japan. And that's what makes it interesting. That's part of what makes it interesting. The fact that you can see all of that stuff for yourself in person, alongside all of this, modern, hyper-modern stuff. These buildings that look like fucking 16K TVs and shit like that. Right next to this kind of stuff is a temple that's, a couple thousand years old. And so on and so forth. So Japan, always seemed interesting. And, some people, and the thing is, I'm putting this out there because anime is not what got me into Japan. Because even at that time, if you did watch an anime, you probably didn't know it was an anime. Like something like Speed Racer. Right? No, that was anime. So I didn't even know what anime was. And, there is a thing where anime does seem to give some people different expectations about Japan and Japanese people. Now, it is what it is, but those people, they'll typically go to Japan with like certain expectations and stuff, especially romantic expectations, thinking that like some kind of anime or manga love situation is gonna happen to them, and then when they realize that like the Japanese people are just kind of like move forward, head down, absorbed into nothing. Those people, they move to Japan or something, for work. They want to be an English teacher or something, and then they find out that like nobody cares about them and they don't have friends, and they want to leave. So that's the only thing, like your expectations are tempered a little differently if you get into Japan via anime and manga, thinking that like Japanese people are something more like that than what they actually are. And that's not to say that, Japanese people are not interesting, but anime characters and manga characters are much more interesting, quirky, and, all this stuff than actual Japanese people are. For the most part. And that's just, that's just my opinion on what I see and what I come across. So anyway, I need to check this gear. It should be a normal four-wheel drive, I think. It feels like I'm in low or something. Don't know. Let's have a look. All right. I think we're good. We're good, buddy. All right. So, yeah. Now with Japan, my idea as a child was to live there when I was grown. Now, of course, I really didn't have any idea on like how this was actually going to happen. It was just something I wanted to do. And I distinctly remember a conversation where the person that's still my best friend at this day, his mom was saying not to do it because if you go over there, you're going to be like in some high-rise, tiny apartment and all this other stuff. Which, that is true. If you're like in Tokyo or something, you'll probably be in a really small apartment. And I stayed in some really small apartments that I don't know if I could live in. I mean, if I had to, I would. Plus, I'd be in Japan. Now, there's concessions that I'd be willing to take to live in Japan. Money is not one of them. Space and what cars I drive are, but I'd still have to have 2 cars, and one of them will still have to be a fun car, like a K car and something like real fun, and like a S660 and like an Evo 6 or S660 and a Skyline or something like that. Like one regular car, one fun car, and there we go. So I would take concessions, just not money. That's why I'm not there, because I don't know what you could do to like make money. Regular, like I don't know, because I can go to Japan. As of now, I can go there as a vacationer with not really having to think about the money that's in my pocket. Like I get to do just whatever, right? And if I were living there and I had to like budget everything like every fucking month, like that would just not be a fun existence, even if I were in Japan. Maybe if I could still afford my cars and then I had to like live kind of like that. But I don't know. It's neither here nor there, because right now I'm not willing to do so. But so yeah. Now like I said, I wanted to go there. Didn't know really anything, and like I said, my buddy's mom, she had that. But see, here's the thing though. she is also very prideful of the city that we grew up in, and the city that we grew up in was not fucking anything, and that's the reason why things, kind of worked out the way that they did. Now, this town was a good town. Not there anymore, thankfully, and that's why I can do anything that I can do today. But see, here's the thing. This town, when we were growing up, when we were young in elementary school, we used to go on field trips to the local companies, like local large companies that existed at that time. And, we knew people's parents and grandparents that worked in these places, retired from these places, and, all that good stuff. So that was just, field trips to these places were just part of the rotation as a kid. Just trying to, I guess, sell the idea of staying in the town and working at one of these places, which would have been fine because it would have been like a retirement job that, you can get out of high school and do everything you need to do. Well, when you think about it, those people at the time, those were probably the boomers that were working at those places. And we'd be far from, we'd still be far from it. But those places were all gone and dried up by the time we got older. Hell, even way before we got out of school, those places were gone. So if you stayed in that town, all you had was retail and food. So, my idea was finally, when I was getting towards being out of school, I'm like, man, military. Military is probably what this is going to be. I go get stationed in Japan, do whatever I'm going to do, live there. Once I get out, I'll try to get stationed in Japan, just do all of my time there. And, once I get out, maybe I'll be married or something like that, and then, I'll just live there, and that's just what life is going to be. That's what I thought. But, the way things worked out. So that this town and its non-offering of things kind of matters, it kind of starts mattering at this point because, before I'm out of school, 9/11 happens. And, there's war. So, war follows that. And, there's this guy that I know. So, his youngest brother was my age, and I went to school with him. And then he had a middle brother that's about 2 years older than me, who this brother, I'm actually still in contact with this middle brother of this guy, and actually convinced him to leave the job that he'd been at to come work for whom I worked for a couple years back. But we're still in contact, and I was actually trying to get him to go to Japan this year with me. But yeah, he did that, and best decision ever, it sounds like, from talking to him. Now, the oldest brother, 4 or 5 years older than me. So when I'm 16, I start getting jobs immediately because I want spending money. I want to buy dumb shit while I'm a kid, and I can do that. So, first thing I do is buy a $700 bike. It's called a Haro Blammo Dave Mara bike. But the thing new off the showroom floor. I had good bikes while when I was younger. But that was the first pro level BMX bike that I had. And I've got a collection. I don't know how many bikes. I had 30 bikes. And now I think I got 15 or 20. I sold some, which I probably shouldn't have sold because I think it'll cost more to get replacements for those now than when I had them. So that's unfortunate if I want them back. But I'm just going to have to be more selective on the bikes that I get because most of them were sold because they were not exactly what, the model of bike that I wanted. I had a Mongoose Villain. The bike that I actually wanted was the Mongoose DMC, so there's a big difference in that. It has the same shape of the frame, but there's so many other differences, such as what the whole bike's made out of and all this other stuff. So, Still versus Chromali, and a lot of other differences. So, like, let me just wait until I can find the fucking DMC and so on and so forth. But anyway, that's another topic. So, this guy, I'm 16 working at these fast food places because, I'm 16, that's what I can do. This guy is 20, 21, this oldest brother, and that's what he's doing. So, eventually he joins the military. This is like after 9/11 has happened, or after it's starting to be war, because in this town there's nothing to do. He's actually recently married, and he's working at these fast food places because I'm going from food place to food place as a 16-year-old, and he's pretty much at them at the same time that I go to work. I worked at Burger King, he was at Burger King. Went to McDonald's, he was at McDonald's, so on and so forth. And that's really all that he could do. And it's not because he did anything wrong in his life, that's just what the town fucking offered. Because all the good jobs that, we were being talked about, that, that we're being talked to about and all this other stuff, that shit had gone. So he went on to the military because the town offered nothing, and he ended up paying the ultimate price. So he was killed in Iraq. And this is the thing, when he came back like the Christmas before this happened, and catching up with the group, which his brothers, me, and this other guy, and then catching up with us as well as anybody else that he knew, his wife, and so on and so forth. And like the last night of hanging out, which was not the last night he was there, because the last night was hanging out was like 2 nights before he left or something like that, because the last night was going to be like wife and whatnot. So I actually was the one that dropped him off at his house that night. I'm like, all right, man. Now, and within the discussion, he'd also said that if you go to the military right now, you are going to be sent to Iraq. Like that's what's going to happen. So that already put me with my ideas. That kind of already took me out of it. But then this guy gets killed. About 5 months later after seeing him the last time. The next time he's in a casket. I'm like, I'm not going, because see, here's the thing, like for me, that whole military thing is for my benefit. It's not for the country, and I never felt that kind of patriotic thing in the first place. So it was all about what I could benefit from, and being over there, getting being able to do some kind of work that you can probably retire from, and if not your veteran status, will get you a civilian job that has retirement benefits, like long-term, like jobs that are worth having, because there are jobs that are not worth having, and that's actually most of them that are out there. And currently I do have a job worth having. I was able to leave, go on vacation 3 times last year, and one of them was a month to Japan. Now I'm planning on what I'm going to do this time for a very long vacation, or whatever. Like, then I can retire from this place if I so choose from. That ended up being the whole goal after a while. But anyway, back at this time, like I said, he ended up dying, and that made me determine that I'm not going to the military whatsoever. And that's what happened. So I'm stuck in this town with shitty ass jobs, and at this point, like, going to Japan is not even going to be a reality, because if my jobs won't allow me, whatever job I'm working, it's not going to allow me to fucking go there, right? It's not going to allow me to pay for it. So I'm not even thinking about anymore at this point. And so I'm just in survival mode. I just gotta work and just gotta live. Because here's the thing, it's and staying in the town, people, it's when people are in a shitty place, like an actually shitty town or whatever, and you do think like, man, why don't you move? Like, you see problems that are in like Flint, Michigan, or whatever. It's like, man, why don't you just move? And it's like, it's not always possible because for whatever reason. So for me, I felt like I couldn't move from that town because I had a job that paid for all my bills. And that's all it paid for, but it did pay them, and anything else, like doing something else, would have been taking a chance to where I could possibly become homeless. If I try to move and everything doesn't work out exactly perfectly, I'm out on the streets, and I'm a man. So, it's just not like, I don't know, it's like, maybe had I been a woman, there might have been some chances that I would have taken, because it seems like, just from the outside looking in, it seems like there would be, possibly some padding if stuff doesn't go right for you. You got maybe, I don't know for sure, but it just looks like it. Like, I can't imagine being a chick and like being of sound mind and physically capable and being homeless. Even if I have to not be happy with myself in certain ways, I can still probably take chances. Which, as a male, can't do. So I did, I lived there. I stayed at this job for way too long. That just sucked, the life out of me. And, the thing is, like, even with that job, like, vacation, that's another thing. Like, I wouldn't have been able to afford to go to Japan on vacation, and I don't. And if I did, I would have to save up every single dollar, which probably would have been impossible. And even if I did, it would have taken multiple years to take one trip. And here's the thing, I worked at this place twice with a break in between, another job. A job I actually liked, but paid even less. So I worked at this place twice, once for 2 years and once for almost 5. And I think to even have 2 weeks of vacation at this place, it would have taken until that 5th anniversary. And if I'd have been working there like all this time, I don't know how many years that'd be and how much time off I'd have, but probably nowhere near as much time off as I have now. And not to mention a lot of things that moving and getting other jobs fucking enabled. This just wouldn't have been possible. So anyway, Japan just was not on the table in any manner. And I don't window shop, so like I never even looked up the price to go to Japan, because I just assumed that like I wouldn't be able to go. So I'm not gonna do that to myself. I don't do that to myself in general. So I don't know how much it actually cost, because when I looked it up, because in 2019 is when I went to Japan for the first time, and that's the first time I actually looked up the cost to go, because at that time, so I'd always had this thought in my mind that this number, it was arbitrary as fuck, but for some reason I always assumed that it must cost like at least $5,000 to go to Japan. Because anytime that travel was ever mentioned in any circumstances, only the thing that I would say, people ask me about traveling and all that stuff, I'm like, the only place like airplanes, the only thing I'm willing to do, the only place I'm willing to go on an airplane is Japan. Oh man, that's so expensive. Oh my god, it's gotta be so expensive. So, I don't know, just hearing that every time Japan was mentioned made me think, it must cost $5,000. So in 2019, here's the thing, like I was willing to pay $5,000 to go to Japan if it cost that much. Now, if it costs more than that, then, that's whatever. But, I'm like, well, if it does cost $5,000, I'll spend $5,000 to get there. That's fine. And then, whatever else. So, of course, it was nowhere near $5,000. But we've still got to rewind, though. So, going back to this past of, me not going, not going to Japan, having decided that it's out of reach. Now, like I said, at this job, it would have been out of reach because if I only had, let's say, if I had to save multiple years and have a 1 week vacation, which a 1 week vacation will get you, I think, 9 days in total. You're 2 days off before your vacation. Your 2 days, and then your 5-day work week, your 40-hour vacation or whatever, and then the 2 days, your 2 days off after that as well. So you get 9 days. And if you're going to, if you're going somewhere like Japan, that travel, you lose a day, but you end up gaining it back on the way back. So it's really the same amount of time, but there's still the thing. If you, depending on when you arrive, it's still, regardless of what day it is when you return or arrive, this trip can be, 11 hours, 14 hours, something like that. Because you can't fly directly from this airport there. So you've always got at least one stopover, and, I think it's, man, how short, I don't even know how short the trip can be. I think, like, the shortest one is, like, the shortest total trip is probably like 14 hours or something like that. So you're missing all that time on a fucking, you got 9 days. You're not going to be able to come back on, like, probably not even going to come back the day before and then, like, do your job, especially not that job. So yeah, like, and I would have to save up every little penny. Like, when I think about how shitty that would have been, like, it would not have been worth going to Japan at that time, spending all that money. You get a very short time there, and then you come back and life still sucks when you get back. You got nothing to look forward to. I'm like, that would make me not want to take the fucking trip anyway, like, because it's already kind of sad. Vacation is a getaway from whatever life is going on, and I'm like, by the time I went in, 2019, like, life is not too bad. It's not too bad to come back. It's it's like, it's not as good being at home as it is in Japan, at least under the circumstance of being on vacation. But here's the thing: I know that, like, living in Japan probably wouldn't be as good as living where I live. So it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. You see. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, Japan, like, even had I ever looked at the price, because that's the thing, the price. Well, I'll get to that. So, going back to, that time, I finally left that place, that town and job, 2013, so a little bit more than 10 years ago. And basically, as soon as I moved, I probably could have afforded Japan, like, by the first year that I moved. However, I was still not in the mindset of thinking about Japan as a thing. Because, the first job I started off with, at least 2 weeks of vacation, which would have, that's like the bare minimum that you should get anyway. But I started off with 2 weeks, and, with where you could just take it whenever, you just use it for calling in, just like, I don't feel like doing it. So, and at the time, like I said, I still wasn't even thinking about Japan as a vacation anymore. So, I would do stuff like just use the days, use the hours here and there, and just, so I just wasn't thinking about it. But, time passed. so forth. And then in 2019, I was at my current job, because the first job I got after moving is not my current job, because I made it a goal that, like, I have to get a job that I feel comfortable with, having, like, obligations, especially long-standing financial obligations, like house, car, and stuff like that. Just working at a private company, I just don't feel it, because, as I had moved, I got my first job, I needed it, and, it was still a lot better than all that time in my old city. That first job, a lot more money, just better, and definitely better hours, better days off. But I wanted to climb up, because now that there were opportunities, I wasn't going to stay at any place. I wanted better opportunities, and all that good stuff. And when you move up, you get better jobs and all this other stuff. You face more worry, especially these private companies. They looking to always just looking at downsides. And this is before COVID. I'm like, I can't imagine having to deal with this kind of shit anymore. So I made it my goal after having a couple jobs. I'm like, oh man, it feels like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm able to do stuff that I wasn't able to do before. I got like new ass cars and shit like this. I can raise a kid. I'm like, hell, even the first job I had when I first came here, I was able to save up enough money that when my kid was born, I was able to take off almost as much time as the mom. That's how much better stuff was. I'm like, if I was still in that old place, I wouldn't have wanted to raise a fucking kid working at that place, because then my kid wouldn't have shit. Because right now my kid has anything that you would expect a kid to have. Probably better. I'm like, I almost don't agree with how much my kid has, because they're gonna be that hunger to like, I don't know if that's gonna be a thing, like that hunger to have stuff if you're used to having it. Because if something happens to us, then you're not gonna have all that stuff, right? Like you were like 7 with a computer with a 3080 Ti in it. Like stuff like that. You get to go on all these trips throughout the year. It's so much stuff. Like, you got a 3D printer, like so much, like, just superfluous bullshit. And you get a little private school, all this stuff. But I'm like, that's the thing. I wouldn't have been able to, like, kid wouldn't have that stuff. If I'd had a kid before, they would not have shit. And I have Facebook friends that, most of the people I know that I have on Facebook, I don't have that many friends on Facebook, like 100 and something. And they're mostly people that I know. And, I see some people, complaining, not even complaining, but like talking about how hard, like, stuff is and shit like that. I'm like, man, see, I don't want to I wouldn't have had kids before being able to, know that I can take care of them. And here's the thing, that also drove me to get the kind of job that I got now, because even though I was getting like good jobs and better jobs immediately after moving, there was still like, man, these jobs are trying to just like get rid of people, trying to find some way to like screw people. Like, shit, one job we had a team meeting, like right before Christmas, where they just discussed, oh, well, this, things are going to be, blah, 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 rough, and we got to do some things, we got to figure out some things, and then, basically, because this job was a salary plus commission kind of thing, pretty good money to begin with, but after they said what it was going to be, they weren't going to mess with the salary, which illegal. But and it's like, oh, well, but we can just change that structure on that. I'm like, oh, that's basically going to cost everybody 33%. I'm like, this fucking girl just literally bought a car. I'm like, man, now paying for that car is like, that's crazy, because, you know, you'd have probably been less qualified for that car if you'd have bought it like the next week. And even so, paying for that car is going to be way more fucking difficult with 33% of your fucking income just gone. So, you know, like stuff like that. It's like the more you make, the more things will affect you, and you know that's also like the more cutthroat that you know the world is when you're trying to like move up. I'm like, I don't understand how people can do jobs that don't have, you know, any kind of, you know, like you just, man, if I can't trust my money, it doesn't matter how much I'm making. And luckily, you know, I have something where, hey, I'm not in a private company, and I can trust my money, and you know, my benefits are second to none. So, you know, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So, you know, as I said, I move from, you know, job to job because I just want money. I don't care about anything else. Give me more money, and then put me in a situation where I can trust my money. But like I said, by 2019, you know, my vacations, I had like 2 vacations put in the books for that year. And a few months, you know, one was June, the other one was like September or something like that. And, you know, I just put them in there just like, whatever, just throw some vacation time in there, just whatever. And then in, man, what was it, like April or something like that? I just, you know, I'm just like, hold on, you know what? If Japan costs like $5,000 to go, I can definitely spend $5,000 to go to Japan. And I got enough vacation time on that first vacation to make it a worthwhile trip. Let's do this. Let me fucking do it. Let's go. Let's look at the price. So, you know, I pull up the prices, and you know, they bottom out at like $800 or something like that. They're like, what? I was expecting this shit to be a bare minimum of $5,000 for the cheapest flight. It was $8,000 or $800 or something like that for economy. I'm like, man, I don't even need to do economy. Let's just bump that up. Let's bump it up. And you know, like the next thing up, fucking Comfort Plus is like, you know, $10.50, $10.80 or something like that. So I'm like, yeah, let's do that, because hey, I've traveled across the US on the bus. I'm like, economy is probably about the same as a bus. Economy might actually be more crowded than a bus. But I still, you know, I still did like, you know, full cross country on the bus. So I'm like, I could do economy if I needed to. But since this shit costs a fraction, an actual fraction of what I thought it was gonna cost, hell yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do that, get that extra room, blah 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 blah. So yeah, I fucking bought the ticket right then and there. $1,000, a fifth of what I thought I was gonna spend minimum. Yes, no questions asked. Let's go. So, you know, that fucking ticket, right? Bought that ticket. And you know, that's how everything happened the first time. To, you know, get me there on the first trip. Now, of course, the second trip, after the first trip, the plan was to come back in 2020. And we know how 2020 went for the world. And, yeah. Now, the first time I went to Tokyo and some surrounding areas. Did not go to Osaka and Kyoto, so I wanted to do that. And also I wanted to try to get to those manufacturing museums like your Nissan Heritage Center and all that shit. I want to do all those things. So I'm like, I'll go back to 2020. I'll go to China. So I started learning a little bit of Mandarin. The idea is to, learn at least, like 9 months worth. Because, most people say like, if I go to a place like some of those like tubers and shit, they act like they learn for 6 months. I don't know if 6 months of learning. Cause see, I can do it while I'm working, which is what I did. I was interested in Japanese when I was a kid, so I was learning books, had books and tapes and CDs and shit when I was a kid. But then once Japan became, like I said, off the menu, I just stopped caring. It's whatever. But then when I booked the ticket, I said it was about 2 months before I left. I was able to go ahead and pick a lot back up. Memory jogged from relearning. And then when I got there, I'm hearing more and more. So it's just, it's just like being more immersed in it. Like it's just, yeah. Like sometimes you have brain farts or whatever. Like if something, like for some reason, if, like let's say, if like a word, you might for some reason want to internally Americanize the pronunciation. Like let's say the word Minami. You don't say it like Minami. Like Minami. However, let's say if somebody says that to you, you might have a brain for like Minami. What the fuck's Minami? And then it's like Minami. Something like that. So like brain farts will happen, or there might be a time where you can start the conversation, but then it might get to where you are like, oh, fuck, they're saying more of an answer than I know how to take in, or something like that. At a given time, just depending on the situations. But getting those like couple months in of like being able to turn my brain off at work and only like focus on that stuff while working, man, it's pretty good. So with the Chinese, I was gonna give it like 9 months because with Japanese I had already had some. So a lot was trying to recall some of this stuff and then add more to it. In Chinese though, the pronunciation was different. Like if you fuck up the pronunciation of a Chinese word, it basically can become a whole other thing. Like the grammar seems much more similar to English than Japanese, but like if you don't say something correctly, like perfectly, then you're not saying like the right fucking thing. Or even if you say it too slowly, because here's the thing, I've spoken to Chinese people like after trying to practice some, I spoke to Chinese people here, and actually this last time I was in Japan, since I knew what people were saying a little bit, I actually spoke to Chinese people there. And there was one time, I was talking to somebody, and actually, they knew some English and stuff as well. Like it wasn't like a person that just didn't know any English. They knew English, and I was asking them, a question, and they actually said, you need to say that faster. I didn't practice. Like, after, you know, we knew that the world was, like, kind of fucked, and then I saw some Chinese people do some things, like, on the news or the internet or whatever, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to fucking China. Fuck that place. Fuck those people, too. Yeah, I said that. You know. Because if they were going to do some of the stuff that I saw them doing, like, then fuck them. Like, you know, acting like foreigners. We're bringing, like, we're the ones that bring COVID, and they trying to beat their doors down, and, you know, all this other stuff, like, in China. I'm like, you know, homogenous places, you know, people give a lot of places benefit of the doubt, man, like, especially Americans, like, white Americans, especially, or people, anybody. Like, unfortunately, like, the Latinos also that think that they're white. I mean, you know, even if they have, like, European DNA or whatever, like, bro, if your name is Martinez, those white people feel the same way about you as they do me, who may be obviously more looking like that. So, but anyway, what I saw, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what they're gonna do. Like, fuck those people. And, you know, it sucks to have to be like that, because I've not had a personal issue with the Chinese person. I've, you know, like, I have had pretty much all good fucking interactions with Chinese people, and I've definitely had some good interactions with Chinese girls. And but, you know, people, you know, other people like to let, you know, if they see like one thing, like, oh man, we saw some, you know, like some Hispanic person from Hispanic country do something bad in the U.S., and then, like, everybody hates fucking any kind of Hispanic. Doesn't matter what they fucking are. Doesn't matter what they look like. We hate them. Hate ya. Hate all ya. Go back to your country. So, you know, like, if I'm gonna see Chinese people do that kind of stuff, then I'm gonna have to do the same thing. I'm like, oh, Chinese people are fucking bad, even though, you know, I never dealt with them. But that's what other people do that shit too. They're like, you never really, have you had a problem with whatever kind of person, you know? No, but you saw this, so they're all bad. Okay, well, I just basically did the same thing. So that, yes, that happened. Now, anyway, so I was wanting to go back. 2020 just wasn't going to happen. And 2021 also, you know, Japan was closed. There were some places that were open, but, you know, it was a big asterisk next to pretty much any of those places. And then in 2022, Japan finally opened in October. And, you know, I did have a vacation booked for October, but that was only a 2-week vacation, and I'd already determined that, like, man, if Japan ever opens up, if I get to go there, it has to be fucking longer than that. So, and the way the timing was for that vacation, you know, I wouldn't have been able to take 2 weeks or at least 3 weeks up, because the vacation was in for 2, and I would have wanted 3 minimum. And the only way to go 3 weeks would have been to do the week before, because Japan opened up on the 12th or the 11th. It was the 11th, because I think the RTX 4090 came out on the 12th, and that's one of the reasons I didn't go to Japan, because I had to be in line at Micro Center to get that 4090, because you don't get the fucking 4090, or, you know, you don't get the new graphics card on fucking day one. Good luck. You'll be stuck with the old shit for months, unless you want to pay twice MSRP. And, you know, I got 2 4090s that day. One of them was like $1,700, Strix was $2,000 for the black Strix. And then eventually the white Strix came out, and I got that for $2,100, I believe is what it cost. And that's what's in my shit now, in my computer. So, anyway, I did not go to Japan for multiple reasons. One being that the 4090 was coming out, and that vacation was not put in there to go to Japan, because Japan opened, they announced their opening sometime like the month before. And, it was also cold as shit. It was cold as shit in 2022, starting in September. Like, September 23rd is like the date that fall starts. And then literally it was like on the 22nd, it was 80 degrees. On the 23rd, on actual fall, it was 40. And it never, got warm. So I'm not interested in cold weather. I don't like cold weather. I don't do things in cold weather. Even if I'd have gone to Japan for the first time in 4 years at that point, or it would have been 3 years or something like that. Even if I'd gone to Japan, I would not have been doing anything the whole time. I'm like, well, I'm gonna stay in this room and drive around, but I'm not gonna get out and walk because it's cold. I hate this shit. So I just wasn't interested in going. And then the timing. So, we have to get our vacation, the only way you can go after October, so, November, December, is if you risk carrying over vacation at the end of the year, like over the maximum, which the maximum is somewhere above 500 hours. Now, there are definitely people that have enough vacation to do that, but, I'm not one of them. So, my vacation had to be over before November. So, going for 3 weeks in October, I would have had to go the week before, because my vacation was starting on like the 17th or something like that. So that was like the second half, and that was still like a day or two in November, coming back like November 2nd or some shit like that. November 2nd, 3rd, something like that. So that's like as late as it can go. So in order to get like 3 weeks, I would have had to go the week before that, which would have put me there like the day that Japan opened. And, I also didn't want to be there the day that they opened, because I'm sure that was a fucking mess. And in general, I'm sure that people overpaid. Japan only opened up for financial concerns anyway, missing out on all that money. They would probably still be closed if they could. And this is why, this is why I had to go as long as I did when I finally did go. I'm like, man, because you can act like, oh man, it'll be there. It'll be there. Japan will be there. Or something will be there waiting on you. But that's not necessarily the truth. And COVID fucking showed a lot of people that, Japan wouldn't be open if they didn't have to. They would still be closed. As a matter of fact, they were closed. They did not join the world stage for a very long time. They were the last country to fucking do so. And without financial concerns or considerations, they would not be closed, or they would not be open. So anyway, I would have had to add a week before that, miss the 4090 launch, and also, like I said, I'm pretty sure that anybody that went there immediately, they probably paid out the ass for, just in general for anything. I don't know what the exchange rate was. Now obviously in 2023 October, oh my God, the exchange rate was so fucking great for us. It was amazing. But, even despite, even if the exchange rate was good in 2022, right when they opened up, I'm sure that, like, services were probably being fucking, they're probably getting fucking brutalized on just the cost of things without the exchange rate being taken into consideration. Like, oh, you want to stay in a room? We haven't had people staying in rooms in fucking 3 years. So, oh, you want hotel gracery? $500 a night. Basic suite. Oh, you want a fucking 1-star? $100 a night. I'm sure the prices were like that because people are pieces of shit whenever they can be, and I'm sure taking advantage of people that have been chomping at the bit to get back to Japan for those years. I'm sure it was easy as fuck to do, because it's easy as hell when there's not something like that going on. It's probably easy as hell to take advantage of everybody. No, it is. Because there's a lot of stuff that's just overpriced, and it just is overpriced. But you're like, oh man, I'm in Japan. I'm hyped, bro. It's like I saw some retro games that shouldn't cost anywhere near what they cost. I saw Castlevania Symphony of the Night for Saturn. It was like 28,000 something yen, and yeah, that's like $190 or something like that. Well, you can get that game on eBay all day for like $150, $140. The Japanese Saturn version. I'm like, that's, but you're hyped because you're in actual Japan buying this shit, so therefore you're willing to spend more money to buy it at the source. I'm like, usually buying something at the source should cost less than having to have it shipped to you and all this stuff. So yeah. It is what it is. It's kind of, all the shit's silly, but so yeah, a couple reasons I just wasn't a good idea to take that trip last, or 2 years ago in 2022. So, like I said, the time lining up just did not work out. I missed my graphics card, and it was cold as hell that year. Got lucky. Last year in 2023, it was it started off at like 75 when I got there, and even by the end of the month, at the beginning of the month, 75 average, and then it cooled off throughout the end of the through the end of the month, and it was about 65 when I left, which is still pretty fucking amazing. So I was feeling pretty good about everything. So yeah, now leading up to 2023, I'm like definitely going, because they're open, and I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to go. Like, something happened, because they start talking about these variants of fucking COVID and shit. You don't know if they're gonna try to, they gotta shut it down again, and then how many fucking more years is that? I'm like, I did almost fucking COVID almost did do it to me. I was septic. I didn't even know, like, I did not feel right. Like, when I had that shit, I just got to a point where I didn't feel right, and before, like the last day before I went to the hospital, because, it was like maybe a couple days before this. There was some stuff that happened in retrospect. Like, there was these, like, at least twice where, I'm just like standing there, and I just start just not feeling right at all. And then I just get like real fucking weak. I get sweat all over my fucking head. Like, whole shit, everything, head, neck, I just start profusely sweating, and then I just drop to the fucking ground, like unable to really hold myself up. I'm like I'm doing this, you're like, and this is just like random out of nowhere. This shit happens, and this is, a good bit before I even decided to go to the hospital, because aside from those attacks, whatever the fuck that was, I'm like, everything seems fine other than that weird shit. And I didn't go to the hospital for that. I might have great insurance, but I still don't want any extra fucking bills like a good American. It's because State Farm ain't there. But so basically, like, the day before I went, I'm like, oh man, I just kind of feel lethargic as fuck. Like, everything just feels slow, and my legs feel heavy, like this fucking trunks attached to them and shit. And then, like, that final night, I couldn't even stay up. Just like, I don't know what the fuck's happening. Like, I was at work. I had to leave work because I'm like, I literally had to pull a chair. Like, what I do does require standing up for most of the time. I'm like, man, I can't even fucking stand. What the fuck is going on? Can't stand. And then I get to a point, later in that day, like, I'm like, all right, I gotta leave because I'm too tired for this to make sense. Like, and I fucking slept like massively long before this shit happened. Like the 2 nights before that, I'm like, man, I slept like fucking 12 hours or some shit, which was also weird as fuck. I'm like, but to me, I'm like, I don't think anything's wrong. So I'm like, 12 hours, fuck yeah, that's great sleep, because normally I don't sleep that well. So I'm thinking that's just like me making up for it. Okay, good. But that night, I'm just like, okay. Then I go to, I'm like, all right, I gotta leave work because I just do not feel right. I'm going to the hospital. And then what happens? I get into my car, and then this happened in 2021. So I get into the car, and then I fall asleep in the fucking parking lot at work with the car rented. And this is the Mustang, so this shit's loud, no exhaust. It's got cams, blah 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 blah. Just doing all that, and I'm just asleep in the parking lot. Then I just wake up. I don't know how long later, but I wake up. I go home, and I go to take a shower. Cause I'm like, man, if I'm going to the hospital, I gotta be clean. So I go do that. I'm like, all right, I'm going to the hospital. And then I go to sleep in the fucking chair at home. All right, sleep. I do that. Then I make it to the hospital. Then I fall asleep in the fucking parking lot of the hospital. Then I go to get checked in. And that's when, you got the vid and the pneumonia. And you are septic. So I'm like, man, if I didn't go today, and then like shit got real bad immediately. It's like as soon, I don't know if like, man, I don't know about some conspiracy shit, but I'm like, man, I got even worse. I got horrible, like way fucking worse as soon as I got to the room. I'm like, fucking up here about to die and shit. Well, I mean, obviously I was about to die from being septic anyway, but I didn't even think anything like that until it happened. Like, it was already like fucking done. I know that shit happens to people. Like, anything that can make people septic, like having an infection that just goes all the way into your fucking deep into your bloodstream or whatever, and then the person's septic and they just seem like they're fine, and then all of a sudden they are not. Like, that is where I was at. If I didn't go to the hospital that day, if I'd have fucking like fell asleep one more time, like, that probably could have been it. Yeah, don't cut this corner that hard, fucking guy. I got metal bumpers on this fucking Jeep, and you will not have a good day. Big metal aftermarket bumpers, big tires, big shocks. This fucking thing rides like a rock, though. I always assumed that, like, you know, Jeep with aftermarket shit is just gonna be a very soft ride because it's just gonna absorb all this stuff. But I'm like, that's not how it works in real life. Apparently, shit feels like being in a fucking car with coilovers maxed out on tightness. But anyway, so, but, you know, because of, like, you know, the COVID shit and all that stuff, I'm like, man, Japan is not, nothing is guaranteed. Like, me going to Japan is not guaranteed. So when I go, I gotta go for a long ass time, which is what I did. I'm like, so as soon as, you know, we got our ability to select vacations in 2023, I'm like, just give me all of October. Just give me that whole shit. That's what I want. Because, you know, I'm not gonna have to fight, you know, we gotta go through, you know, seniority ranks and all this other stuff for vacation. And I believe from, you know, within my little circle or whatever, I'm decent. I'm nowhere near the highest. I'm like, there's people have been working at this fucking place since I was a fucking infant or some shit. They have start dates that fucking long ago. I'm like, god damn. And, you know, I know they fucking make money not doing anything, which is fucking gotta be nice, because they even have a different, you know, their contract is even better. And I feel like, compared to what most people get, I feel great about our contract, and it's not even as good as the previous people's shit. So I know they all make bangers. Like, I just show up, do this simple job, take 6 figs. Sounds good to me. Which, you know, I mean, I can do. I do as well, but, you know, I gotta stay at work longer than they do. But as long as it's possible, like in the old town, it wasn't even remotely possible. Glad that it is. But yeah, I couldn't, you know, after COVID, like, not even just because of what COVID did to me physically, but just because what COVID did to, you know, the world and shutting everything down. I'm like, I didn't feel like, fuck, oh, nah, Japan will be there. I'm like, no. I'm going for a month. Like, fuck anything else. I'm going for a month. So, you know, that's kind of how that happened. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going for October, and then when it was time to look at the tickets and shit, so, you know, I pulled up, you know, Google Flights and all that stuff, and try to do everything that you can to try to, you know, cheapen that number as much as you can. So, you know, I'm looking at multiple devices, I'm signing out of shit, signing in the shit, looking at other people's devices, having them pull it up, but you don't know how they're doing. It's like, maybe if I'm talking to somebody about this shit and our phones are listening, which they are definitely doing, you know, the phone, you know, even if it would normally give them a different price, the phone could just be like, well, they're both right here talking about this shit. We're gonna show them the same price, my guy. Let's do this. So, but, you know, either way, I was never able to see like a different pricing for this stuff. Incognito mode, cookies off, signed in, somebody else's device, so on and so forth. Just wasn't seeing it. So, you know, unfortunately, you know, it was what it was. But either way, so, you know, if initially I was going to go in September just to make sure that it was warm, like, you know, October is always it's a wild card. It can be fucking 40 like it was in 2022, or it can be fucking 70 like it was in 2023. October's always been like that. And so initially I wanted to go in September, but I kept those apps going a little too long. I was waiting for a dip in the price, and it actually went up, and it never came down. So then I just set the search date for 1 month later in October, and that ended up being the price that September was when I was first looking. So, you know, I'm like, let me not let this one raise as well. So then I just bought it for October, and then, you know, like the price, it dropped. I think it dropped by $100 or so sometime after I bought them, and then it went back up to the same price, and it stayed at the same price pretty much until I left, because I just kept looking just out of curiosity. So, you know, it's not the greatest situation, you know, but you're taking too much of a chance. And here's the thing, like, they have these offers where you buy them at a price, and then you can try to get it, like you can do a price hold or something like that, but you got to pay for it, right? You got to pay money to get the price hold. So it's like, if it goes lower, you can get it for that price or whatever, but you're gonna give up most, if not all, the savings that you would make. You would give up those savings by doing that, which, you know, kind of subtracts from the whole purpose. So yeah, you know, But anyway, that's pretty much the whole, like, you know, everything leading up to this or that trip. So the first time I got to Japan, everything that led up to the first trip, everything that led up to this trip, and that's pretty much it. So I'll go ahead and get this uploaded, and then I'll actually talk about the trip. I'll see if I have a video talking about the trip live, and that might be what I put up for the second part. Well, no, I'll actually talk about the trip. I don't know how I'm gonna edit this stuff though. Like, this is going up like it is. The other stuff I might try to edit some, but the problem that I'm having with that is the app to do it is so fucking slow now. So I don't know. That'll be it. I'll see you later. I'll get it figured out. Bye for now.